Good day. Important regional elections took place in Germany on Sunday, 14th March 2021. These elections took place in two West German states, or Länder, the constituent states of the German Federal Republic. The states in question being Rheinland-Pfalz and Baden-Württemberg. Now, before I discuss these elections in more detail, I would just say that the Chancellor Merkel's CDU party was in second place in both states prior to both of these elections, with the regional governments in both of these states headed by minister presidents from other parties. In the case of Baden-Württemberg, the Greens, led by Winfried Kretschmann. In the case of Rheinland-Pfalz, the SPD, led by Malu Dreyer. Nonetheless, these are two states where the CDU has historically been extremely strong and which, before Germany reunited, were in many respects part of the CDU's West German heartland. Suffice to say that Baden-Württemberg has had a CDU minister-president continuously from 1947 until 2011, when the Greens surged to power in the aftermath of the Fukushima nuclear accident in Japan in 2011. In Rheinland-Pfalz, the CDU was continuously in power from 1952 until 1991, with no less a person than Helmut Kohl, minister president from 1969 until 1976. So historically, these were heartland areas of the CDU and places where the CDU used to be very, very much the dominant party. The CDU has been slipping for many years in both states. It has not held power in Rheinland-Pfalz since 1991, and it has not held power in Baden-Württemberg since 2011. In Baden-Württemberg, it is in coalition with the Green Party, which won the election, the state election, in 2011. And in Rheinland-Pfalz, it has been in the main opposition party to the regional government led by Malu Dreyer of the SPD. Nonetheless, as I said, these are natural parties for the CDU to do well in. Rheinland-Pfalz incorporates the famous wine region of the Rheingau and includes many of the most picturesque regions of Germany on the Rhine, with famous castles and beautiful towns like Worms and Mainz. And Baden-Württemberg is a major economic powerhouse, with Stuttgart, its major city, being the home of such famous German companies as Daimler-Benz, makers of the Mercedes cars, and Bosch. So these were places where the CDU would once have been the dominant party and where it would have been expected to do well. In any event, and in fact, the CDU lost ground in the regional elections in both of these states. In Rheinland-Pfalz, it fell from just under 32% of the vote in the previous election in 2016 to just under 28% of the vote in this election. That would once have been considered an extraordinary result for the CDU in this state. In Baden-Württemberg, it fell back from 27% of the vote in the 2016 election to just over 24% of the vote in this election. Again, an extraordinarily poor result for the CDU in this once solidly conservative state. And it is impossible to see this bad result in both these elections as being anything else than a comment on Angela Merkel and the CDU's government of Germany, government of Germany at this time. Now, I have discussed my personal opinions about Merkel and about the way she governs Germany and has been governing Germany ever since she became Chancellor many years ago. I have said that she has governed Germany from a strictly centrist position, gradually eroding the CDU's profile as a right of centre or even right-wing party, that this has been gradually alienating much of the CDU's more conservative base. But perhaps even more importantly, it has come at the price of growing immobilism and stagnation in Germany, as Merkel shows great reluctance to take any strong positions on any important issues, letting Germany and its economy drift behind those of the other major economies, such as the United States and China. And this sense of immobilism and stagnation and malaise has been gaining strength in Germany for some time now, for some years. And in a sense, Germany's response to the recent pandemic crystallized it. Initially, in the first weeks of the pandemic, Angela Merkel, who has a scientific training, seemed to do very well. She made a number of broadcasts to the German people in which she gave detailed explanations of what she was doing and what the government was doing. The Germans were generally impressed by Germany's, as it seemed, successful test and trace program. And for a time, it looked as if Angela Merkel, who had become increasingly unpopular, had recovered her touch and was once more the most popular leader in Germany, and the CDU was once more the most popular party. However, over time, that has eroded. I've again discussed many times on programs for this channel how the government's, the German government's decision to delegate the operation of the EU's program of medications to fight the pandemic has proved a complete disaster, and inevitably and unavoidably, Merkel herself has come in for blame for that, and justly so. I would add that Merkel herself, as again I discussed in the recent program for this channel, seems to have retreated increasingly into her own world. She gave a remarkably pessimistic and downbeat New Year's broadcast to the German people, and a few weeks ago, articles in Der Spiegel appeared in which they suggested a Merkel who has become increasingly out of touch and irritable, and who prefers to discuss in German cabinet meetings issues like bees and insecticides rather than the pressing problems which Germany faces. So it is unsurprising that already there has been a quality of malaise in Germany, a sense that the CDU has overstayed its time, that Merkel has been in power for too long, that Germans are becoming restless with all the immobilism and the stagnation that goes with Merkel's rule. In addition, and above that, we've also now had a succession of corruption scandals, which I've also discussed in a recent program, which, by the way, are getting worse, with another German Bundestag MP from Merkel's CDU party implicated in the latest scandal. And in addition, there is also rising anti-lockdown sentiment in Germany, as there is in many other European countries. So it is unsurprising in a sense that the CDU should be losing ground in regional elections. Frankly, given the extent of the malaise in Germany, the sense that Merkel has run out of road, the sense that the CDU has run out of road, it would be very worrying and concerning if this was not reflected in some way in regional elections. The trouble is that the system that Merkel has created, Merkelism, if you like, still seems to be firmly in control of German politics. There doesn't really appear to be any challenge to Merkelism from outside the political system. I say that because though the CDU seems to be in decline, the parties that came top or which won in these regional elections, the SPD and the Greens, are both of them very much part of the German political establishment and in some ways accessories to Merkelism. The SPD has been in coalition with Merkel for most of the existence of Merkel's government. The Greens are positioning themselves to form a coalition with the CDU after the German federal elections in 2021. In its origins in the 1970s, the Greens, the Green Party, was indeed a radical alternative party. At that time, it was anti-NATO, it was somewhat anti-EU, it had a very radical edge, it was anti-nuclear weapons, it led the protest movements in Germany against the deployment of nuclear weapons in Germany at that time, and it was led, as I well remember, by a fiery radical, Petra Kelly, who is, by the way, an almost forgotten person in Germany today, at least so far as I can see. The Green Party of today is a very different party. It is extremely Atlanticist, pro-Atlanticist. It basically supports the EU. It essentially mirrors all the orthodoxies of the German establishment, except that it brings to them an ecological edge, about which, incidentally, I personally have some misgivings. So neither of these two parties really poses a clear-cut alternative. The party that it looked as if briefly it might do that, the AfD, has recently found itself in growing political difficulties. It is deeply divided, and on top of that, it is also facing a sustained campaign to discredit it by the German establishment and by the German security state. In these two regional elections, it fell from third place to fourth, behind the Greens in Rhineland-Pfalz, behind the FPD in Baden-Württemberg. So the AfD at the moment does not look as if it is in good shape. So the high probability, and in fact the tragedy for Germany, is that it looks very likely that whatever happens in the September 2021 elections, the result afterwards will be a German government very similar in most respects to the one that Angela Merkel has been leading. It will be Merkelism without Merkel. It will be possibly a CDU Green coalition led by Merkel's chosen successor, Armin Laschet, or perhaps it will be a CDU-CSU Green coalition led by Markus Söder, the head of the CSU party, the sister party to the CDU, which is based in Bavaria. Söder is considered to be somewhat more right-wing than Merkel and Laschet are, but against that, he's hardly a major break with Merkel on most things. Or conceivably, and there's been growing talk of this in Germany, we could see a new coalition with the Greens, who are increasingly becoming the most popular party in Western Germany, leading it in coalition with the SPD and with the FDP, the Liberal Party of Germany, which is known to have a more pro-business perspective. All of these are establishment parties, and none of them seem to be especially full of new ideas. And if that is indeed what happens, I fear that stagnation will continue. It will especially continue given, in my opinion, the nature of the Green Party, which is becoming increasingly positioned as the most likely party either to go into coalition with the CDU or perhaps to lead a new coalition which excludes the CDU, depending on how the September 2021 elections happen. I say that because though I accept and understand that many of the Green Party's environmental policies have a value, as a party, it doesn't, it seems to me, have many ideas beyond that. And the lack of ideas on other questions has tended to make the Greens extremely dogmatic, or so it seems to me, on the ecological and environmental ones. I am not sure that that is really what Germany needs at this time. Suffice to say that the Greens' energy policies, in which they oppose nuclear power and oppose nuclear fuels and want and gas and carbon fuels, seems to want to commit Germany to an even faster switch to non-carbon, non-nuclear energy, which I suspect is going to be impossible to sustain and extremely and ruinously expensive to Germany's industries. So I don't think the outlook, frankly, is a very optimistic one until Merkelism itself is broken. What happens to Angela Merkel herself is not going to change the situation in any radical way in Germany itself. It may change things in one respect, though, and that is that Merkel herself is undoubtedly a virtuoso manager of this system. Whether anyone else would have her political skills in managing Merkelism without Merkel is a question that is open to doubt. If no one can, then the risk Germany runs is a growing instability, growing dissatisfaction with the political system, weak governments in Berlin, all at the same time as symptoms of stagnation within Germany continue to take hold. That is not a good future for Germany, and one which the Germans need to think very hard about. I'm going to finish by making one further point, which is that these two regional elections and the politics which I'm talking about are very much West German elections and West German politics. Again, one of Merkel's particular skills is that as a former citizen of East Germany, of the former communist German Democratic Republic, she did have some foot in East Germany, and the CDU did have a significant presence there. What is becoming increasingly clear is that the politics of East Germany are starting to diverge increasingly from those of West Germany. So whereas the Alternative for Deutschland, the AfD does not do well, or is increasingly not doing well, in West Germany, it still seems to be a powerful political force in the former East Germany. So does Die Linke, the former East German Communist Party, which has been reformed into a radical socialist party with a much stronger edge than the former SPD, than the SPD, Germany's traditional social democratic party, which remains a force in Western Germany. Die Linke increasingly looks like a powerful force in East Germany, and it is a particularly strong force in Berlin and in the regions around Berlin. Again, I have to worry that this increasing divergence between Eastern Germany and Western Germany in politics doesn't promise very well. So Germany, it seems to me, is in for uncertain times. As Merkel recedes, Merkelism apparently continues, but its ability to hold things together is starting to come under increasing stress, both in Western Germany, where there is, it has to be said though, merely a rearrangement of the furniture of the deck chairs, but also in Eastern Germany, where there is an increasing outright rejection of it. Germany is in for uncertain times. Thank you for joining me for this program. I look forward to you joining me in future programs on this channel. Please also look us up on our other channels, the Duran, where I do programs with my colleague and friend Alex Christoforou. Please also check us out on our other platforms, BitChute, Library, Rumble, and of course especially Odyssey. Please also support us as you can through Patreon, PayPal, and Subscribestar. And remember, we accept donations in Bitcoin and other currencies. Please also look up our Discourse server. You'll find links to all of these under this video. And last but not least, check out our shop. See the wonderful things that are happening there. Our famous magic mugs, like this one, our t-shirts, our famous t-shirts, our sweatshirts, our hoodies, our hats, and all the rest. And I look forward to you joining me in future programs on this channel. And have a wonderful day until then.